Welcome to the very first video of Game Talk 24/7. Here at Game Talk 24/7, we're going to talk about a various different amount of sports, including college football, college basketball, college baseball, the NFL, the NBA, the NHL, the MLB, and so much more. All here on Game Talk 24/7. Without further ado, let's start talking sports. So, to recap, so far we are in week 10 of the college football season. So, to recap so far what's happened in the college football season, as of right now, the three left undefeated teams in college football include Ohio State, Indiana, and Texas A&M. Ohio State, their best win so far has been Texas. Texas fallen off a little bit, where they were the preseason number one team. Now they are only top 20 with two losses to Ohio State, and then also to, who did Texas lose to? They also lost to Florida in a game they probably should have won. But other than that, they've slightly found some consistency on defense while still having a struggling offense under Arch Manning in his first year. Then you have Indiana, who surprises everybody once again in the second year under Curt Cignetti, who is making a name for himself as a phenomenal coach in college football. After beating Oregon badly at Autzen, Indiana has found their way up in the top two in the college football AP poll, alone behind Ohio State. Not to mention, Indiana has done this behind a bunch of players that were 3 stars and 4 stars, not that many 5 stars. There were a lot of players that no one expected to really compete at a high level the way they have. And so you have Fernando Mendoza at quarterback, a quarterback that not as many people thought would be as good as he is. I mean, they curb stomped Illinois at Indiana, winning by a score of 63, 63-10. That alone against Illinois, who a team that was in the top 25 up until recently. That was a team that everyone expected to be a lot better. A team that people expected to fight for the college football playoff. Well, Indiana put an end to that, and then Ohio State put an end to that when Ohio State played them at Illinois and beat them. And then also when Illinois lost at Washington. And then you have Texas A&M, who sits at the top as the lone SEC team right now that is undefeated. They sit at the top with Alabama in the SEC. Alabama, after losing their first game to FSU, has fought back strong with a vengeance. After losing their first game badly to Florida State, they have gone on a tear. Ty Simpson has looked like a Heisman-winning quarterback. Their defense has played good football, and Alabama has looked like what you expected them to look like under Kellen DeBoer in his second season. Sorry, not first, second. Kalen DeBoer has done a great job at Alabama so far. He has done a great job getting them right now in contention to win the SEC. Now, should they have lost to Florida State at the beginning of the year? No. Was that a great job by him and the coaching staff? No. But they have done a great job bouncing back after that. Not to mention Florida State, a team that everyone thought was going to be good at the beginning of the year. After dominating their first 2 to 3 games, they have struggled and fallen off, losing 3 of their last, 4 games. If I'm wrong, I apologize. But they've lost a lot of games that they shouldn't have lost recently. They have lost, let's see here. Let's look at their schedule. Let's see how many games they've lost recently. They have lost 4 of their last 4 games. Sorry, not 3 of the last 4. 4 of their last 4 games. 3 of those games being games against teams they should beat. Especially teams that we expected them to beat after what they did to Alabama. But those are your top 2 teams sitting alone in the SEC. Then you ask the question, what happened to Georgia? Georgia's still near the top of the SEC with their only loss being to Alabama. And they also have a road win against Tennessee. You have Oregon sitting at the 3rd spot in the Big Ten right now with their own loss being at home to Indiana by a score of 30-20. So it was only 10 points, but Indiana had control of that game for mostly the whole entire game, and it looked like it was just going to be chaos for Oregon. After getting an overtime win the week before, or a couple weeks before, against Penn State. Not to mention Penn State is no longer in the top 25. They have struggled this year. Drew Aller got hurt. They fired James Franklin. They lost after that loss to Oregon. They then got blown out by UCLA at UCLA, and then they go on to lose one-score games to Iowa and another team. To Iowa and, let's see, who did they lose to? Penn State lost to Iowa, and they lost to Northwestern. Wow, two teams you should not lose to. Both one-score games besides that, but still, that's a rough stretch for Penn State that fired James Franklin. Not to mention another team that's fired their head coach, LSU. LSU, after starting the season strong, beating Clemson, they have struggled under Brian Kelly so far to start the rest of this year, and they have not looked good at all whatsoever. They have lost to Ole Miss. They have lost to Vanderbilt, and they have lost to Texas A&M. Now, those are all ranked losses, but at LSU, guess what? 3 losses in a season doesn't cut it because it doesn't get you anywhere except a ticket to a bowl game. And they're not looking for a ticket to a bowl game. They're looking for a ticket to the national championship. They're looking for a ticket to the college football playoff. And that was not going to happen this year under Brian Kelly. So they also fire Brian Kelly. Another team that fires a coach is Florida. They fire Billy Napier after having what has been a not good year with DJ Lagway as quarterback. They are 3-4 there down in Florida. Lose it with losses to Texas A&M, Miami, LSU, and South Florida. Now, South Florida's looked like a really good group of 5 team so far, and they've looked like one of the teams to fight for that group of 5 spot in the college football playoff. But if you're Florida, you can't be losing to South Florida, especially when you had high expectations coming into this season. That has been rough. Now back to the top 10. After Oregon, you have Ole Miss, with their only loss being to Georgia. Ole Miss has looked pretty good so far. Even with the multiple different quarterbacks they have played, they have looked really good so far. Then you have Georgia Tech going undefeated behind their star quarterback in Haynes King. While he may not be the best passer of the football, he can run the ball like no other in college football. He's one of the best running quarterbacks in college football. He is a tough, physical beast that he gets hit, he gets right back up. He is phenomenal at quarterback. Then you have Vanderbilt, with their only loss being to Alabama. Vanderbilt has come into their own under Diego Pavia these last 2 years. They have looked like a fighting team that can fight for a spot in the college football playoff and fight for a spot at the top of the SEC. Then you have BYU, who is at the top of the Big 12 right now, sitting there undefeated with Texas Tech. Texas Tech is not undefeated. They're 7-1. Texas Tech's lone loss comes to, I think it was, Arizona State, 26-22. Arizona State has not had a great year this year after bouncing back after what happened last year with going to the college football playoff with Cam Scatterbo and all that he's done in the college football playoff last year, but also look what he's done with the Giants so far until he had to get ankle surgery. But now this year they don't have Cam Scatterbo, and they've looked a little different without him. They still have Sam Levitt and Jordan Tyson. They've looked good in moments, like beating teams like Texas Tech, but they've also looked bad in moments. But that's so far what's happened this college football season. Now, what's going to happen this weekend in college football? As of Friday, today, October 31st, the weekend, this weekend's college football slate is not as big as it would have been at the beginning of the season, because at the beginning of the season, you were going to have Penn State and Ohio State kicking us off tomorrow on big noon kickoff. But that's still going to happen, but that's not going to be as exciting of a game with James Franklin being fired, Drew Aller being out, and Penn State not looking great to start the season. But you still have Ohio State and Penn State. It's still a rivalry matchup. Now, is it as big as Ohio State and Michigan? No. But it's still a rivalry matchup. There's still a lot on the line because guess what? In college football, there is no draft. So teams won't tank to get the best draft pick. Teams are going to try and win no matter what because coaches and players are all fighting for their spots on the team next year. And so with that being said, you have Ohio State and Penn State in a masterclass of a game kicking us off tomorrow. Then you also have Vanderbilt and Texas at 12 on ABC. A game between a 7-1 Vanderbilt team that's looking for a spot in the college football playoff and Texas that is looking to stay afloat in the college football playoff race. While their hopes and dreams might not be alive yet, they're looking to stay afloat like a floaty in the swimming pool this week against Vanderbilt. Texas is favored to win at home by 3.5 points as of right now. Will Texas win? I don't know. Right now they have their backup quarterback starting because right now Arch Manning is still under concussion protocol. But can Texas stay afloat even with the backup quarterback against Vanderbilt? Depends on what Vanderbilt team shows up. If you get the Vanderbilt team that played last week against Missouri, where their offense went non-existent, yes, Texas can win this game because Texas still has a really solid defense there with Colin Simmons. Michael Taft might be out, but their defense as a whole is still solid and one of the best defensive teams in all of college football. They might not be a top 5 defensive team. They might not be a top 10, but they still have some of the best talent on the defensive side of the ball in all of college football. They also still have some of the best talent on the offensive side of the ball. And if they can figure it out in 1 week, who knows what can happen going into week 11 and going into the game tomorrow. But again, they're trying to stay afloat like a floaty in the swimming pool or a duck sitting on a pond. Can they trying to keep their college football playoff hopes and dreams alive? Will it happen? I don't know. This week you also have Indiana, who is undefeated, going to Maryland. Indiana should win that game pretty handily, but anything can happen. I expect Indiana to win handedly. I expect them to put a foot forward and say, "Hey, we're gonna be one team that's in the Big Ten championship. Ohio State's gonna be the other. Who's gonna fight for that spot, and who's gonna fight for that Big Ten title?" Right now, it's looking like Indiana and Ohio State, and I expect Indiana to take another step towards the Big Ten championship this week. They have an easy schedule remaining the rest of the season, so the question is, what will they do with it? Tomorrow, you also have Georgia at Florida. While Florida's not met their expectations, they still have a talented roster with DJ Lagway at quarterback. The question is, can their coach step it up? They don't have Billy Napier, so they have just some interim coach sitting in. Can he get the job done? Is he enough to go out there and beat Kirby Smart in Georgia? Probably not. Georgia should stomp a mud hole through Florida's chest. But the question is, will it happen? Because what's supposed to happen and what does happen doesn't always equate in college football. You also have Virginia, one of the top teams in the ACC right now, going to California. They're only favored by 6.5 points. That should be a decent game. Virginia should beat California pretty handedly. But again, it's conference football, it's college football. Anything can happen, just like college basketball. Anything can happen. Doesn't mean anything will happen. But I expect Virginia to win that game. You have South Carolina at Ole Miss this weekend. South Carolina is expected to lose this game. Ole Miss is favored by 11.5 points. South Carolina still has a lot of talent, though. They have Nick Harbor, one of the fastest college football wide receivers in all of college football. He has all the skills and the talent to be really good. He just needs to put production on the field. They have Lenore Sellers at quarterback, a quarterback that we all expected to be phenomenal. Can South Carolina come into their own and just kind of show everyone, hey, we're this team, we're here to stay, we're here to do this, and this is what we can do. You have Oklahoma at Tennessee to round off the 7:30 slate on ABC this week. Tennessee's favored by 2.5 points. Oklahoma was at Tennessee. I expect Tennessee to win this game. While their defense does not look good, their offense has been phenomenal this year. And Oklahoma, while their offense hasn't been phenomenal, their defense has been top 5 in all of college football this year. So it's going to be a good matchup. The problem here is Oklahoma has not ran the ball well at all to start this season and throughout this season. And so with John Mateer having an injury to his throwing hand, it has thrown him off. He's throwing for 150 less yards per game right now than he was before the hand injury. So with his hand injury, he has been struggling a little bit to get back on track and to have access to the weapons he had before. I mean, he still has access to them. He just hasn't been able to hit them as well. It's like Curtis Worker in Indiana last year, who had the same injury and had to get surgery and then came back, and he was never the same quarterback for Indiana last year either. But I expect that to be a dogfight between two really solid teams who are trying to fight for a spot in the college football playoff at the end of the year. Sorry, my throat's getting a little dry there. Then you also have Cincinnati at Utah, a 17 versus 24 matchup. Cincinnati has looked really good in the Big 12 so far to start this year with Brendan Sorsby at quarterback. Their only loss so far comes to Nebraska, who Nebraska looked like they were going to be a decent team to start the year after beating Cincinnati and with what you've seen with Cincinnati. But Cincinnati's own loss was to Nebraska 2017 at the Kansas City Chiefs Stadium at Arrowhead. That is the only loss Cincinnati's faced since then. Since then, they have looked solid, and they look like a premier team in the Big 12. Them and BYU look like the two best teams to fight for the Big 12 championship as of right now. But Utah can say something about Cincinnati's chance of getting there if Utah can upset Cincinnati. It is at Utah, and Utah is favored by 10.5 points. So the question is, can Utah cover and beat Cincinnati and cover outright and just win outright? Or can Cincinnati upset and play spoiler and, kind of just throw throw a little parade and say, hey, Utah, you're not going to keep us from getting to the Big 12 championship. It's going to be somebody else. Utah has a chance to play spoiler. They have a chance to say, not today. You're going home crying. We're going to be the victors. But the question is, will that happen? So while this week's college football slate is not as exciting as it was at the beginning of the year, you still have some key matchups for conferences in the SEC, the Big 10, and the Big 12, and the ACC. You still have some key matchups to find out who's going to fight for those conference titles, who's going to fight to get into the college football playoff, who's going to be standing alone on the mountaintop at the end of the season with hoisting a national championship. Who will be the team hosting a national championship? As of right now, you can tell by my shirt, I got Ohio State. I'm also an Ohio State fan, so that's why I got Ohio State. But Ohio State's looked like the most dominant team in college football. While offensively, they might not be averaging 40 points a game. They're only averaging 36 points a game. Defensively, they're only giving up 5.9 points-ish a game, almost 6 points a game defensively. Defensively, they are number one in almost every single statistic in college football. Defensively, they have looked phenomenal to start the season under new defensive coordinator Matt Patricia. Now, coming into the season, a lot of people had doubts about Matt Patricia. I didn't, because I knew he was a really good defensive coordinator. He may struggle as a head coach in the NFL, but in the NFL as a defensive coordinator, he won a Super Bowl. He won multiple Super Bowls, actually, with the Patriots as a defensive coordinator. So he has been a phenomenal defensive coordinator throughout his career. And so when he came to Ohio State, I'm like, the question is, how much will his scheme change? And how much will our players have to adapt to his scheme? And right now, they look like the New England Patriots on defense. I mean, while we might not have the skill of an NFL team on defense, we have the play scheme and play style of an NFL team on defense, where he's using the same scheme he used in the NFL, just in college football, with a very talented and smart group of individuals at Ohio State. The defense looks this year better than it was last year, and last year they had the best defense in all of college football. So with the fact that this defense looks even better, it's just a testament to how hard the players work, how talented the players are, and how good of a defensive coordinator Matt Patricia is, and all the hard work he's done so far this college football season, and helping his defense get better and become a top dog in the Big Ten. Right now, they're looking like the team to beat, but Indiana might have something to say about that. Texas A&M might have something to say about that. But as of right now, Ohio State looks like the best team in college football. They have a quarterback in Julian Sand who's completing 80% of his passes. If you look at his adjusted efficiency, he's completing 85% of his passes. They still have Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, Brandon Ennis, Mylan Graham, Will Kacmarek. They have Max Clare. They have Jelani Thurman. They have just so many weapons. They have Bo Jackson at running back. Yes, not the Bo Jackson, but a young freshman running back who's a stud and named Bo Jackson. C.J. Donaldson at running back. James Peoples, who is fast as all get out. They also have Isaiah West, who has stepped up and made some plays recently at running back for them, most recently in the game against Wisconsin. But right now, Ohio State looks like the team to beat in college football. Now, again, who will stand at the top of the mountaintop at the end of the college football season, hoisting a national championship and taking stake and claim over all of college football? Will it be Ohio State? Will they be the ones saying, we're here to stay, we are back-to-back national champions, and no one can get rid of us? Or will another team have something to say about that? We'll find out at the end of the season. But before we go, we got to discuss the start of the college basketball season that starts on Monday. So again, this is Friday, October 31st. It is Halloween, and we got the start of the college basketball season on Monday. So we have about 2 days if you're not counting today, 3 days if you're counting today, before the college basketball season starts. And I am so excited for this college basketball season. While this college basketball season hasn't started yet, we have seen some awesome preseason games so far, but the preseasons are just the appetizer. They're just the breadsticks. They're just the side salad. They're just the soup before the main entree. No, on November 3rd, on Monday, when the college basketball season starts, you get the main course. You get the entree. You get to start digging into the meal that is the college basketball season before the dessert comes in March when we get to conference championships and March Madness. And it's such a fun season. We're going to enjoy it. We're going to love it. It starts again on Monday. We have a monster matchup to kick us off. Florida versus Arizona. Florida comes in at 3 in the preseason AP poll. Arizona comes in at 13. While I don't care too much about the preseason AP poll because The preseason is just based off of, hey, what did players that you have on your roster do last year? What does your talent of your team look like? It doesn't actually mean they're going to be number 3 at the end of the year. It has nothing to do with what's been played on a court because all you've seen is preseason games. And preseason games, while you can take a lot from them, teams are missing players. Teams are trying to find their best rosters. Teams, while they're trying to win games, they don't mean as much as regular season games do. And those regular season games kick us off on Monday. But you have Florida versus Arizona. That is a monster matchup to start the college basketball season. Florida led by Alex Condon, Tommy Hoff, Ruben Chinyelu, Micah Hamgladen, Boogie Flan, Xavier Lee. But mainly Alex Condon, Tommy Hoff, coming back from last year's national championship team. Then they bring in Xavier Lee from Princeton, Boogie Flan from Arkansas. Can Florida go back-to-back? Is Florida going to be as good as the team they were last year? Their front court is phenomenal. One of the best in the country. Their back court with their guards, Xavier Lee, Boogie Flan, they have potential. Boogie Flan, last year Arkansas did not play as much winning basketball as Arkansas did because Arkansas looked way better without him on the court than they did with him on the court. And so the question is, can Boogie Flan really, while he played sloppy last year, he still had production. He produced very well, scored very well. But he played sloppy. Let's see, how many points did he average last year? Boogie Flan last year averaged, sorry, let me look this up real quick. Boogie Flan last year averaged 13.5 points per game. That's good, but it's still sloppy. It was still sloppy when he was at Arkansas. Arkansas's offense didn't run efficiently. Well, he was getting his own. The rest of the team kind of wasn't. And so can Boogie Flan kind of come into his own instead of being sloppy, be more refined, be a better all-around college basketball player this year? At Florida, we'll find out. And then Xavier Lee, a guard from Princeton, who is really good at Princeton. The SEC in this level of college basketball is a lot different than the Ivy League. He ain't here just to learn. Now he's here to play basketball. And while Xavier Lee did really well at Princeton and did really well in the Ivy League and was a really solid player against most teams that they played, he's going to go against a level of physicality that he hasn't gone against before. It's going to be like the SEC is like grown men compared to boys when you compare the SEC to the Ivy League. It's going to be an all-out bloodbath to an extent to him physically compared to what he's been through before, but it doesn't mean he's going to be bad. The question is more so, how is he going to develop and how is he going to handle the physicality that they have in the SEC compared to the Ivy League. But Florida looks to be a solid team. Arizona has some questions. They look to be solid like usual. They have some questions after losing players like KJ Lewis to the transfer portal, Caleb Love to eligibility, Henry Vesar to the transfer portal, and multiple others. Let's see, who else did they lose? They lost did they lose? Who did they lose? I think that's the main ones as of right now. Caleb Love, KJ Lewis, Henry Vesar, Trey Townsend graduated. And so with all those losses, it comes to a point where, hey, what do they got this year? They still got a good roster. They still got a decent team. They always have had a good roster. They're going to be led by Jaden Bradley, a returning guard, a senior guard this year, who averaged 12.1 points a game last year. Can he take a step forward and be the leader that the team needs? They have Koa Pete, a 5-star freshman coming in who has looked good so far in their exhibitions. They have Braden Burries, another 5-star freshman coming in. Who can he produce and also be a leader of this team that they need? That should be a good game. I expect Florida, with their veteran presence, while they might not have all played together, they still have a way more veteran team than Arizona does. I expect that veteran presence to be helpful to Florida, especially with Arizona losing Henry Vesar to the transfer portal going to North Carolina, losing KJ Lewis to Georgetown, the transfer portal, who, while inconsistent, was a solid player for them at last year, averaging almost 11 points a game. Then you have Caleb Love, their best player, leaving college due to eligibility. He has no more eligibility, so he had to go to the draft. Arizona's just lost a lot of key pieces. The question is, did they replace those key pieces in the right way in the proper way to help them win this year, I think they're going to be a good team. I mean, Tommy Lloyd is a phenomenal coach. Arizona's been good under Tommy Lloyd. They have been good under. They have been phenomenal in college basketball. The question is, though, how did they replace the pieces? Did they replace the pieces well enough to where you can say, hey, this is a team that can be having confetti fall on them in the Big 12 championship, a team that can be having confetti and cutting down the net and celebrating like they're the king of the castle in March, winning a national championship? I don't think they're that caliber of a team. I don't think they'll win a national championship. But I think they can be a contender and a dark horse to compete in the national championship. I think they're a contender and a dark horse to win a not top heavy, but a good Big 12 led by Houston and BYU and then multiple other teams. It's just going to be tough for Arizona with all they've lost to say, hey, we're going to go out and win our first game of the year against Florida, who has a lot more college experience. And they also have a really good coach in Todd Golden, who has done a phenomenal job so far at Florida. Those are the big games on opening day of college basketball. Actually, you have another big game too. You have the other big game you have is BYU at Villanova, I think, on Monday. BYU at Villanova, I think. Also, Arizona lost another star player in Carter Bryant, who, while he might not have averaged the most points per game when he was at Arizona, he had phenomenal games. He had bad games. He had phenomenal games. He did really good for them. And so that's a big loss for him. He got drafted in the first round in the NBA draft to the San Antonio Spurs. So without Carter Bryant, it's all about like, hey, who's going to step up in those roles of the players they lost to the transfer portal and the players that they lost to the draft. And so, again, 5-star freshman Koa Pete, 5-star Braden Burries. You return Jaden Bradley. You have a phenomenal coach. They can do it. But the question is, how long does it take for Koa Pete and Braden Burries really to step into their own in college basketball? I expect them to lose to Florida in what is a really good game to start the college basketball season. And then, again, you also have another big game in Villanova and BYU. While Villanova has a new head coach, they are always a solid team, always a solid program. They missed the tournament last year and fired their head coach. They have a new head coach. They haven't looked terrible so far in their exhibitions. Now they lost to Virginia in a close game, but they have a 4-star / 5-star freshman, depending on where you look, and a Caden Lewis, who has been phenomenal against Virginia in the exhibition. They have a new head coach, so you don't know a lot about Villanova. They don't have the most talented team. BYU should run Villanova out of that gym, to be quite honest. But Villanova could step up and say, hey, while we may not be where we were in the past, we can get back there eventually, and we can start competing for national championships again eventually. But I expect BYU, led by AJ Debonsa, Rob Wright, Richie Saunders, Kayla Cada, and everyone else that BYU has, I expect them to say, hey, you know what? We're a top 8 team in the country preseason, and we're here to solidify that and show everyone why we are that way. AJ Debonsa has looked phenomenal in their preseason exhibition games, and AJ Debonsa coming in as, some would say, the number 1 player in the class, some would say the number 2 player in the class. Depends on if you count Darren Peterson for Kansas as the number 1 player in the class, or if you count AJ Debonsa, or if you count Cam Boozer at Duke. But AJ Debonsa is phenomenal. He's fighting to be the first pick in the draft next year in the NBA draft. So he's been phenomenal. He's going to be phenomenal. And I think he's going to lead BYU to a steady win over Villanova in week 1, day 1 of college basketball. Well, that's all we got for today. We were talking sports. That's Game Talk 24/7. Thank you guys for watching.